Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Happy Sunday. We got Trail Dust in first, last, whatever. Shane Lalonde in 89th. Ben Toombs, what's up? Bort Gov. We got Type or Double O Negative in the house. How you doing? And I'm sure everybody else is going to file in. I see the viewer count going up. Everybody's probably just watching the ads or lurking. Hello, lurkers. Robert Whitney in the house. So yeah, we're moving along today. A lot of stuff going on, and we'll get to the how was your week segment to kind of do a brief catch up. We haven't heard from Adam Speargrass Forge in a while, so it feels like it's been years since we've talked. So how's your going? How's your life going there, buddy?
I am exhausted. I have had a huge week. Of course, last week I wasn't able to join the show because I was at work. But this week, basically, I have been flat out all week. We this week I had a demonstration on Saturday. So yesterday for me. It's of course Sunday evening here, but so yesterday I had a smithing demonstration at that we do every year at what is called Geek Fest here. So it's part of Palmerston Youth Week celebrations, and there's a basically it's a kind of like a mini Comic-Con type thing. Whole heap of people get dressed up, and so as part of my HEMA club, which is Historical European Martial Arts, our sword fighting, Darwin Sword Academy. I set up and do a blacksmithing demonstration. So basically my week has been set up preparing for that, and also I was planning to do a turning a fence panel into a gate for a friend of mine, and getting my swords sharp for cutting demonstrations and polishing up my swords and all that type of jazz. So that took up most of my week. And then, of course, Saturday, making sure my trailer was roadworthy and getting that all set up and then loading up. And then Saturday turned into an absolute cluster dive. I was going to say another word there, but Saturday morning, was supposed to get in there to set up by at 9 o'clock. So I left home because when my traders loaded that up, I've got about a ton's worth of stuff. As anyone who's done a demonstration knows, when you load up all your gear and go to a demonstration, it can weigh quite a lot. So I had half of that in my back of my ute, or my truck, as you guys would call it, and the rest in the trailer, my anvil and my post vise and stumps and stuff like that in the trailer. And as I was leaving, I got about 10 minutes from home and I blew the tire on one of my trailers. Now, I'd taken for a drive the day before to make sure everything was hunky-dory. And, of course, like I said, it blew about 10 minutes away from home. And I was in a position where, because the roads out here, it was too narrow for me to turn around. And so I had to limp the trailer doing 40 kilometers an hour, about 20 mile an hour, to the service station in order to pull up, and then only to find that the spare tire that I had wasn't on the trailer. So then I had to luckily my partner worked at the service station, so my wife, I jumped in her car and raced home to pick up the spare tire. And then the rim that I was given with the trailer when I bought the trailer didn't fit. So it was a brand new tire in it. It didn't fit. So then I had to take the original tire and rim and the new one luckily there was a tire place open the Saturday morning. I had to take that up. I paid to have the tire changed over, to race back to put that on, to actually get to set up. So, like I said, I was supposed to start by 9. I didn't get there till 11:30, and then I had another engagement on from about 3, and I was supposed to start the smithing demonstration at 5. But I didn't get back until 6, and it was just the whole day was go, go, go. And then the demonstration finished at 10 p.m. And then by the time I packed up, I didn't get home till 1. So it was by the time I got home early this morning, I was, after a week of being on the go. And then yesterday, it was just, I was absolutely knackered. And with
Pre-cracker?
the demonstration, yeah, pre-cracking. So I didn't even like it. I didn't really. I had things planned to do at the smithing demonstration, and then of course with everything going sideways, the demonstration went sideways. I just threw my hand up in the air and ended up making a couple of S hooks. I made a couple of hoof picks out of a couple of old I made two hoof picks out of one old horseshoe, and yeah, basically, and also I did a little bit of a custom job. A friend of mine that is also part of my HEMA club, he got a wrought iron Mjolnir pendant from a reenactment like restaurant thing that they've got down south in Melbourne. And but he wanted to customize it. So he wanted a little Triskeli, which is a Nordic symbol, punched into the pendant. And then he wanted it brassed. Earlier in the day, he'd asked me to do it. And during all these things going wrong, I had to run to the local big box hardware store and grab a brass brush. Luckily, they had one that was actually brass rather than just brass coated bristles. So I got that, and then later on in the evening, I customized his Mjolnir pendant by putting that punch in, putting that symbol in by punching it in, and then brass brushing it. And he turned out really he was absolutely ecstatic with the result. So that was good. And then I also had a couple of people come up to me whilst I was doing the demonstration for some custom orders for things. One of them, at least, is a little bit non-safe for work, so I won't mention that one. But I also had some people come up to me for some custom bits and pieces. I've got a lady that needs that works at a restaurant that needs a brand. They brand their steaks with a branding iron, and she hasn't been able to find anyone that can make a new branding iron. So she said, "You'd be perfect to do it." It's kind of like, well, that's kind of what I do. So yeah, bring it to. Let me know. Get in contact when we bring it to me, and I'll make you a new one. No worries. But yeah, so it's just been the whole week has been go 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 go. I've done a little bit of work on my books. Thankfully, I managed to set enough time to do that, but that's mainly because my wife gets up at 3:30 in the morning to go to work, and this week she's also woken me up at like 4 o'clock when she leaves. So in those hours where it's actually too dark to do anything outside, I've come into the office and done some work on that and a bit of research. So I've managed to make a little bit of headway. But yeah, so today is my changeover day. And I've actually been glad I've been able to sleep. It's just been one of them weeks. But yeah, so
there you go.
It was really eventful. I've had a good time though. How about yourselves? What about you, Sully?
Yeah. My week wasn't too bad. I had I don't know, medium work week, I guess. Wasn't too busy, but last week during the stream last week, I don't know who it was, but somebody had mentioned that I should check out the show Outlander. Well, needless to say, over the course of the week, I finished out the last 3 episodes of Yellowstone, and I'm 14 hours deep into Outlander. I mean, I love that show; it's pretty good. So thanks for hosing me on that. Yeah, I literally the first episode, I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna get good." But yeah. Other than that, I did get out and work a little bit on my project yesterday morning, my gallery project yesterday morning. Just in the interest of I need to get a little bit of progress, and I was out there for about 45 minutes, and then I was like, okay, it's too hot, it's time to do something else. But yeah, that's pretty much the extent of it. Oh yeah, I was gonna say there, Adam. I figured out that. Or when you were talking about your trailer there and you had the flat, in my head, I immediately went, and you didn't check the air in your spare, and so it was flat. And then when you aired it up, the rim didn't fit. That's the way I thought it was going to go. That's what
pretty much. That was yeah. Apart from the air. Now the air was. I'm pretty good with the air pressure in my tires, but yeah, no. When it just I'd never thought previously, because the rim had come with the trailer. I'd never thought to actually take it off and check.
Yeah, no, I encountered a similar problem back in the day. I had a Porsche, and I had a spare tire in the back, and I was like, all right, never even. I mean, I checked the tire pressure in it, and then one day I had a flat, and I went to put it on, and it wasn't the right bolt pattern. It's like, well, that's just odd. So,
Yep.
anyways, Yamez, how was your week?
Tiring. So, uneventful yet busy. As typical, work. I had an electrical panel upgrade and change out on the beach, and that was a nightmare. This house is from like the 50s or something. It was rough. But got that taken care of. Got a bunch of other odds and ends taken care of for work, and all my spare time has been over there at my rental property, preparing, putting the flooring down for my because my brother and sister-in-law move in 2 weeks from yesterday or so, and so trying to get at least the flooring down. Then I got to get some countertops up and cut a sink into this 2-inch butcher block. Oh, that's going to be a fun one. But yesterday, slamming some flooring down, I struck the tips of 2 fingers with a hammer and split the ends of my fingers, and it makes for real painful typing on the keyboard. And as per Dr. Speargrass's recommendation, I've got them unwrapped and breathing right now, and I can't wait to suffocate them again with some Neosporin and electrical tape, because that's how I do. But yeah, beyond that, it's going pretty good. I've got a auto repair loan from my work coming in, and I'm gonna get my I'm gonna take my truck in and get my as many of you guys know, my truck is junk. You guys know that. It's a good beast, but you got to get under there and take care of her. And I had my
lack of routine maintenance is catching up.
No.
Yes.
No. I'll go for the entire hour. No. But I got to swap the tie rods out, or the tie rod ends out, and change your filters. Yeah. And I've got to swap the tie rod ends out, and get an alignment. And I think when I get the alignment, they'll tighten up the steering even more, and that's my only concern with driving it long distance is making sure that the tie rods don't bust out on us on the mountain roads there, Alexis. So everything else should be good. I also got to get my vehicle inspection, so that'll pass, and she'll be good to go for the ride up to Ohio in September. But yeah, I got just continuing on being busy as possibly can be, and soon as all this is cleared up, all this big hecticness is cleared up, I should have a little bit of breathing room to be able to actually get in the shop and do some stuff. I still haven't cleaned up that towel rack that I made 2 weeks ago. I still haven't finished that project yet.
Hey, can Kevin give me a countdown to my birthday there? So when I was checking the SOPA website 2 days ago or whatever, it was like 77 days, but I kind of lose track of days, so I don't know. 75, 76, somewhere in that area, maybe, or 75, 74. I don't know.
Well, if he gave us a countdown, last week and it was 77 days, then it would be 70 days.
No.
Oh,
That's what it was like. That's what it was like Wednesday, or I don't know what day is today. Sunday. That's what it was like Friday or Thursday. I don't know.
Yeah. But all right, so Kevin, what's the countdown to Quad State? Huh? But yeah, there's a delay. We'll hear about it. But anyway, so continuing on the month of July, I was looking at the schedule for this month, and we've got 5 weeks of Colonial Blacksmithing. And so last week we discussed like the very first blacksmiths coming into America, and we recognized the names, which was odd. Keffer, I think, was what was the gunsmith, but I don't have the file up in front of me, so I can't remember the names. But we discussed that. We discussed briefly discussed Falling Rock and the what was it, Sugasa? Anybody remember the name of the manufacturing plant? So you know what? I had it up there. I can't remember it. But yeah, we discussed a bunch of stuff last week about the very, very first blacksmiths in colonial America. And today we've got our resident historian who has pored over our records and is about to prove everything that you ever knew about colonial blacksmithing, life in the days of, beating wrought iron, in the middle of a field, wrong. Something. I've taken too much painkiller stuff, so my head's all loopy. I've got ibuprofen in me. I've got Tylenol in me. I've got acetaminophen. I got powdered aspirin. I'm and caffeine. So forget everything you knew about colonial blacksmithing. We're doing part 2, where a historian corrects us.
Well, I wouldn't be too hopeful. No, so one of the points that Yamez made last week, and we'll probably go into this a little bit more later in the month, but there's basically 2 things I'm going to cover right now, but the second thing is going to be a little bit more in depth. So the first thing I'm going to cover is basically what a day in the life of a blacksmith was during the colonial times, and this is actually as recounted in a document called "The Blacksmith in the 18th Century Williamsburg," an account of his life and times of his life and times and of his craft. And this was actually published by Colonial Williamsburg. I'm not sure of the date because it's in Roman numerals. No, sorry, it was released in November 21st, 2018 as an ebook, and it's on the Project Gutenberg website as a basically free for anyone to read. But just to give you an example, so a day in the life of a colonial blacksmith depended on the season. It was very seasonal dependent because what you did depended on the time of year. So, for example, during the summer, okay, a day in the life of the blacksmith might include things like shoeing, wagon repairs, fixing plows, and fixing tools. And I'll go into a little bit of an example of that in a minute. During the fall or during the autumn, it would be, again, shoeing, wagon and sleigh repair, particularly being coming up to winter, axe repair, and harvest tool repair, fall being the harvest season. So particularly it would be when they're bringing all the crops in. So repairing harvest tools was a particularly important job. During the spring, of course, it would be tool repair, plow lay sharpening. So of course, particularly with horse-drawn plows, lay sharpening was a very important thing, as well as axe sharpening, starting to build up the stocks of timber after burning them all winter. And then, of course, during the winter was actually, even though it was a professionally down time for a smith, it was also a very busy time. So during the winter, for example, they'd be doing shoemaking, shoe caulking. So shoe caulks are basically, you could kind of compare them to cleats on a sportsman's boot. Caulks were metal pegs that were peened into a horseshoe in order to make sure they didn't slip on ice and snow during the winter. So shoe caulking, nail making was particularly a very common thing during the winter for blacksmiths. Even though, as Yamez stated, it was I could see him giggling far too much with the shoe caulking. But nail making was, even though it was an apprentice thing, and of course being a nailer was also a trade in of itself. Nail making was also a very common thing for a blacksmith in colonial times because they had the time to do it. Of course, making a lot of household items such as pots and pans and sewing needles, a lot of regular tools, hammers, axes, shovels, and other tools. Wagon and sleigh making was also a very common blacksmith's occupation during the winter months, particularly in early colonial America, where cartwrights and wheelwrights weren't exactly a separate trade to blacksmithing, or at least lots of blacksmiths had the ability to do cart making and wheelwrighting as well. Plow building, particularly for the upcoming spring, and of course they spent a lot of time repairing their own tools and doing maintenance on the smithy. So that's a lot of what was doing. Now, to give an example of that, on the book I just mentioned before, for example, starting in 1759, to give you a list of things that were actually listed on receipts of what a blacksmith did. So, for example, on January 4th, made 5.5 wheels and riveting them round. On January 9th, so this is all during winter, made 5 staples and 1 ring and 3 goosenecks. Goosenecks, of course, being for horse teams. Again, made 5 staples and yokes for another one. This is on the 12th of January, made 3 hooks and 6 rings. Again, made another 1 large ring. This is all on the 12th. 8 small pins and cutting a chain and making the traces. On the 20th of January, made 4 hooks and 4 rings. Made an ox chain and staple and ring. Made a large plow. Made an axe. Then made 3 axes, one of his own iron. That was on February 1st. On February 12th, made a plow hoe. On the February 21st, laying 8 hilling hoes, and on the 24th made a fluck hoe of his own iron, made a plow of his own iron, made 3 hilling hoes, and on the 24th, and then 5 more hilling hoes. So that was an example of this is January. Of course, we know it's mid-ish winter over there in the US. So these are things that they were doing in the during the winter in order to keep themselves busy, and also to have that stock in preparation for the upcoming spring, in order to provide for the local people for sales and whatnot. Now, here's another, for example, another blacksmith in 1771. Blacksmith by the name of Henry Morse. So on the January 22nd, he cleaned 3 guns, did the same thing on March 22nd. And then, different time of year, and that was for a specific customer. But to give a different example of what they might have done it in 1773, in February, lengthened in and mended a bed pin for a cart, and then also did a set of clamps. On the 19th, with pointing a plow. Of course, that was in February, so it's for the upcoming spring. 22nd, made a screw key for a mill. Again, that's preparation for the mill, for milling flour and stuff like that. 23rd, made 2 keys for locks. 27th, made 2 bend pins and 2 lynch pins for a cart, a cleavy and a pin, and also ironwork for an ox yoke. And then to go into June, which of course is in the midsummer, dressing 3 mill picks and lengthening a crane. They fluked a hoe. They made a hoop for a mill. Made 2 wedges, made a broad axe, and made a key for a lock. So that was, of course, during the summer in preparation for what was coming up during the spring, being autumn. So in autumn for the harvest. Doing all these things in order to prepare. So
I'll never complain about being busy again. That list of that list of accomplishments for, like, here's what we do in the different seasons. That's an insane amount of work. And to be fair, that's their job. Like, if I were to take and
Yeah,
list my if I were to take and list my you know seasonal blocks of work and put them all on paper, it would be like, whoa.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, but it just shows you, like, when it's just a simple statement of as a day in the life of a blacksmith is a very complex question, because there's so much going on. If we don't live these days as seasonally as people did back then. I mean, and to put it into a very local context for you, think about going to a farmer's market, for example, and trying to get access to local fruits and vegetables, whatnot, that's grown in your area. If you really lived like that, you'd have to do a lot of pre-preparation and pre-planning in order to be able to live a lot more sustainably like that. And of course, during harvest or growing times, being spring to autumn, these are times where, the old saying, you got to make hay while the sun shines. So, the blacksmith is doing things like doing those repairs, and is more focused on the things that need to be done now as opposed to future planning. Okay, sure, he's still buying his stock and buying food and stuff like that, and stockpiling for winter, as everyone at that stage would have. But that he was more in the now projects, because things need to be repaired and fixed now so that farmers could make the food and do all that. And then during the winter months, it was their chances to actually go, okay, now I've got some me time to make all the repairs that I need to on my smithy, but also to make things that will make me money going into the future. Like your plows, like your sleighs, like your wagons, your nails, like even something as simple as making shoes, horseshoes for future what was going to come, or even at least just shaping them, because we know even now, I know farriers who they might buy shoes off the shelf, but they still have to fit them, and they still have to do a little bit of cold smithing, so to speak. And some of them, of course, there are still hot smiths out there that will shape the shoes a little bit better in order to fit the horse's feet, because just like humans, no 2 feet are the same. So, they'll take that opportunity during the winter to do all these jobs. They're still working sun up to sun down, or not late, if not later, in order to get these jobs done. And so they've only got a 3-month span to do as much as they can. So that also leads me on to the next subject, in the apprenticeship, how apprenticeships work, particularly in colonial America. Now, I do have a little bit of a thing to read, because the information on apprenticeships in America, I wouldn't say is sketchy, but it's a bit convoluted. So, as a legal and a contractual arrangement for occupational training, apprenticeships emerged from Europe and the European craft and trades guilds of the Middle Ages. In an apprenticeship system, boys and girls, of course, depending on the trade, but particularly in blacksmithing, boys, usually between the ages of 10 and 14 years old, were trained under the supervision of what was classified as a master craftsman or merchant in a particular trade or profession for several years, most often until they were 21. Under the terms of the indenture or contract, a master acted loco parentis, so in the stead of a parent. And the apprentice promised to serve his master well, living in his household and learning the craft. A young man who completed an apprenticeship would in Europe successfully be admitted by their specific guild as a journeyman and allowed to work as a master craftsman for wages. Now, aside from the voluntary apprenticeship system described above, there was also a compulsory type, which almost always was concerned with poor or orphan children indentured by church or civil officials whose primary concern was finding a decent home for the child. Occupational training, often implicit in such indentures, but decidedly secondary to the custodial concerns. Now, both types of apprenticeship were transferred to the American colonies, but not the guild system, which exerted exerted a little influence, except in parts of Spanish America. Now, this really is important in the case of the indentured, particularly state-sponsored apprenticeships, because that was particularly common during the early parts of the colonial America. But on that same note, there was also during the whole history of America less focus on apprenticeships. There were very many instances of self-trained blacksmiths throughout the history of U.S. Settlement. Now, but what I mean by self-trained blacksmith is blacksmiths that had either worked as a striker in a blacksmith shop, or were self-taught as a farmer's blacksmith, or had moved to an area and seen a requirement for a blacksmith, the local blacksmith being tens of miles away at least, and that can be up to 50 miles away, which is a long way as we all know. So a blacksmith might have moved to an area, seen a need for a blacksmith, not really had any formal training, but had known enough or done enough in order to teach himself what they needed to do. So but particularly in regards to the indentured one. So in the Chesapeake colonies as early as 1643, Virginia passed its own apprenticeship law. It sought to protect orphans, of whom there were many because of Chesapeake's devastating disease environment, and they did that from protect them from unscrupulous guardians who might otherwise neglect their wards' inheritance and education. Guardians and overseers were instructed to educate orphans, and this is a quote, in a Christian religion and the rudiments of learning, and to provide them with the necessities according to the competence of their estates. In 1646, drawing exclusively from the poor law from the UK in 1601, the Virginia Assembly called upon officials to choose 2 poor children from each county, either male or female, and send them to Jamestown, where they would work in the public flax house and be taught carding, knitting, and spinning. Virginia's legal code of 1661-1662 instructed parish veterans to apprentice. Just a second, I've lost it. To apprentice orphaned, illegitimate, or poor children, particularly in regards to blacksmiths, nailers, and tinsmiths. In 1668, veterans in individual counties were also further organised to set up a workhouse school. And finally, an apprenticeship law was specifically passed in 1672 and left the county justices in charge of caring for poor children in Virginia. Virginia apprenticeship statutes then were updated until 1768, which instructed masters to teach reading and writing respectively to male orphans, poor boys apprentice, orphan females, and illegitimate children of white females. Such regulations were not always rigorously enforced, but they could hardly be ignored. Now, going forward to other parts of the US, particularly, for example, New England, which actually dealt with this slightly different. They passed a law in 1642 about the apprenticeship and of particularly of poor or orphan children, because negligent and parents and masters could be fined, and select men were empowered to take apprentices and poor children from families that were incapable of fulfilling their responsibilities for them. So there was kind of an enforced indentured servitude on people who couldn't look after their own kids. They were also required to teach them under a Christian religious education, except for the colony of Rhode Island, which actually had embraced the separation of church and state, and were one of the first in the country to do so. So basically, apprenticeships were very common, but they weren't the only system, and they were mainly it was the first instance of basically making sure that particularly the youth, when they were trained, they weren't just used as cheap labor. They were cheap labor, but they weren't just as used as cheap labor. Their masters were setting them up for success in the future as well, so rather than just using them as cheap labor. So I found that particularly interesting regarding the basically length and the breadth of these laws so early on, which of course set up America's, the US's penchant for industrial, innovation. Now, further from that, there was actually, and I'm just give me a second to find it. I was reading something earlier during my research, which actually spoke about how the US, particularly the colonies and blacksmiths in the early parts of the colonies, were actually referred to in England as being very hard workers, and this was mainly because the blacksmiths, particularly, had to work harder than their counterparts in the UK, and the people in the colonies particularly had to work harder than their counterparts in the UK, simply because all the infrastructure had already been set up in the UK. They no longer had trees to cut down and land to clear, and diseases to fight. They were already relatively set up, and that the UK basically made their money by writing laws and selling it. When they'd import, for example, iron ore is a very good example. They'd imported iron ore, they'd convert the iron ore in the UK, and then send it back to the Americas at inflated prices. And a lot of Americans, and it kind of was the start of that discontent about the UK making a lot of money off the whole Boston Tea Party thing. The UK make a lot of money off the colonies of America because they didn't really do anything, and America didn't have the ability to do everything themselves. Well, they weren't allowed to do everything themselves at that early age. There was a law passed in the 1700s, in particular. I think it was about 1776, where with a royal decree that outlawed the manufacture of iron in the US, simply because it was a threat to the British manufacturing. So, of course, it was completely ignored, but it wasn't enforceable in the first place. But yeah, so basically that's my presentation. It was rather long-winded. I apologize, but we can probably get to some of the chats and see what they have to say about my whole presentation.
We don't want to go to the chats right now. You brought up guilds, and they started talking about modern day guilds, and that's unions, and that started a whole thing. And I got called a scab and a Republican and all that fun stuff. And yeah, that chat's wild right now.
now I'm when it comes to guilds and unions, I'm going to have a stay here because I'm in Australia. There's nothing you can do about it. At the end of the day, unions are a great thing. The unions are as good, and of course that applies to guilds. Guilds being the original form of unions. Guilds and unions are a great thing in and what they were originally designed to do. Unions and guilds were originally designed to protect the worker, the same as the laws that I was talking about regarding apprenticeship. However, like governments, and unions can just be just as bad as governments, in the sense of when you get people that get stuck at the top for a long period of time, they get more concerned with preserving their power than they do with protecting the worker. And that, of course, can lead to issues where they influence certain situations and outcomes in order to benefit themselves, which aren't always at the benefit of the worker or the people on the ground. And I've seen that here in Australia. I've seen that overseas. I have been a member of a unions before, and I'm currently looking at becoming a member of a union at the moment.
That sounds like a modern day politician right there.
If I may.
Yep.
If I may, yes. Unions, in theory, are excellent. And in practice, you have a lot of good, situations where unions do good, because there are a lot of crappy employers. And going back to what you were talking about and how this relates to blacksmithing and guilds and all that stuff, it ties in and it brings in the modern aspect of it, because it's what it's turned into. We no longer have a need for guilds, with a guild hall and shared tools and such like that, we now have unions. And, I see a comment here with Jeff Killian talking about, he was a steelworkers union for 17 years, or he's been drawing the pension for 17 years after 34 years of working and paying dues.
Yep.
Yes, it's a good thing. However,
and that's something that the guilds did back in the day as well. When a blacksmith, retired, he got paid out by the guilds.
Now, I always maintain, I love the human race. I love individual people. I love people, or I love individuals. Groups of people, I can't stand. I cannot stand them, because the individual is smart. A group is dumb as a bag of rocks. Okay. Now, and this applies to unions pretty heavily. Okay, because on an individual basis, a union is helping the individual. Okay. Yet it creates, and me being an electrician, okay, the only union that I've ever been in was the laborers union back 15 some odd years ago, 20 years ago, and it was for a grocery store that I worked at, and you had to be in the union to be employed with that grocery store, whatever. So it's like, okay. And they took 20% of my paycheck as my union dues, whatever. And there was an issue in California under the same union where a person was a no-call, no-show or something like that, and it sticks in my mind because of how ridiculous it was. It was a no-call, no-show, and the person got fired while they went to the union and got the job back, and or tried to get the job back, and the company was like, no, it's a no-call, no-show. Oh, you're supposed to, per union rules, blah, blah, blah. And the union went on strike. So 3,000 miles away, I'm out of work for 2 weeks, but I have to show up unpaid in uniform holding a sign to support somebody who didn't show up for work. It made no sense to me, It creates more problems than it solves in modern times. Okay, for non-union, electrical, I'm on a lot of and sorry to derail this away from blacksmithing, but I'm actually kind of passionate about the union non-union debate. I'm pro-union in the aspect, if you can't find a shop to work at that you can work with, a non-union shop, join the union, because you know what, that means that in your area there's just not a lot of freaking quality employers, and it allows you to work in an area even if you don't get along with the boss. I hop onto the electricians Reddit, and it's like, it's just nothing but trash talking non-union. It's like, just nothing but like just vitriolic hate towards non-union. It's ridiculous. It's almost like brainwashing. Now, a specific job back in Chicago, and Chicago is a heavily unionized state or area. We had a new construction site, or not a new, it was a remodel to a church, okay, and a big remodel that lasted years. And the owner of the property, the owner of the property and the general contractor is all non-union work. Well, for the entire year, we were picketed, and it's like, it wasn't like it was a union site that then went non-union or the union went on strike. Like, we were just working and then we were picketed. Tires got slashed, windows got broken, job got, screwed up, and, there was vandalism and, just shit being thrown at us all the time. It was like, and then threatening. It's like, so you're trying to bully me into joining your club, and you are so brainwashed with hate against non-union that you're going to sit there and act like a very shitty human being to other human beings. I'm sorry, I don't want to join your fucking club. Sorry for my language. I'm just union. I have had really bad experiences with union members. Okay, so while when they originally started, it was a great idea, it has created just a horrible mindset. So, you know,
And and to be fair, this is the debate that's been, and it's a reason why, as part of the reason why the guild system didn't actually overflow to America, as per my research, is because of this similar issue of, you know, Smiths, journeyman Smiths, and stuff like that didn't pay their dues to the guilds in during the European times, during the Middle Ages and early colonial times. You know, a lot of them actually moved to the New World, being the US, in order to get away from the guild system. And then even up until, and this is as per my research for the book, it's not included, this is just a side of things that I found out, that the debate of co-opting you know, cooperation among Smiths, making a guild-like structure in order to, you know, demand better prices, demand better wages, and set a certain level for blacksmiths, either being blacksmith in industrial situations or even independent blacksmith working in local shops, with a discussion that happened right up until the 1930s, saying, you know, get in contact with your local blacksmith in the area and set up a meeting and set up like a cooperation in order to, so everyone in your area has to pay a minimum price for for them to get horseshoes and this and that and the other, so you can make a living wage. This is, and you know, not everyone got on board with that, and you know, it was kind of, to a certain degree, some people turned around and said, well, that's price fixing, and I don't agree with it. I'm trying to make more competition. So this is a conversation, you know, particularly guilds and apprenticeships and all that type of thing, that has been happening for literally hundreds of years, you know. And it's the same argument, so to speak, in the sense of, you know, in, you know, some people should be able to work for free, some people want to join the union, you know, that's all good and well, and there are certain benefits to both, you know, being, for example, working as a free agent, you have the ability you know, to set prices. You don't have to follow the guilds pricing schedule, for example. You know, you also have the ability to work for whomever you want, whenever you want, at your own times and stuff like that. But it comes with the pitfall of, okay, well, you're not guaranteed a wage where, you know, or a certain level of income, and you know, you're responsible for your own insurances and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the best and worst thing about you know, guilds and cooperations, and of course, by extent, unions, in the sense of, you know, this is always going to be a discussion that's going to be had, because there's benefits to both, and both should be allowed to exist. And I think it really comes down, and again, this passionate discussion about it is also something that's happened for hundreds of years, you know, in the sense of, you know, those that are outside of the guild, cooperative, or union structure, often wouldn't say get looked down upon, but are often treated differently than those that are within it, and vice versa. So, you know, I think, you know, it comes back to the old saying, why can't we be friends?
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm, you know, all I can do is share my, you know, like, have an opinion based on my personal experiences. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I mean, I can't hold an opinion based on somebody else's experiences, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, love it or hate it, that's exactly what it is, you know. It's my opinions based on my personal experiences. And, you know, to be clear, I do not disagree with the idea of a guild, with the guild structure and system in and of itself. Okay.
Mhm.
I disagree with the mentality that it's turned into for those in the guild. Now, for example, this is a free, America, speaking of America, at least is a free country. And we're not going all into that, but, America's a free country. If somebody doesn't want to work, somebody else will take the job. Okay. That person that takes the job should not be penalized, threatened, or, attacked for taking said job. Okay. So it's that that mentality that I don't like. But I digress, and I do apologize to the show, to the podcast, to my co-hosts who are looking at me like I'm freaking. What are you doing, Yamez? Derailing this whole Colonial blacksmithing. Change the title to something else. But
Yamez's rants. Yamez.
It's you guys know I'm a passionate person that will go off on tangents.
And just a comment. A couple of things. So first of all, Jack Pine said, "And ice holes exist in every power structure," and I really like the way to get around things. Ice holes. I'm gonna claim that and use that from now on. There's lots of ice holes out there. Someone was gonna say something.
No, I was just gonna say I can't. I don't really have an opinion on that. I mean, I do have an opinion. It's just not a valid opinion because I've never had any personal experience with a union or anybody that's been in a union. So I have a I don't know. I don't have I have an opinion, but I also consider it to be invalid because I actually have no experience with it. So yeah, I'll just leave that one alone.
An opinion based on the idea of it rather than practical, I guess. And my point of view,
based on the way I feel it is, and not but I don't know. I mean, I could be completely fucking wrong. I could be completely wrong.
My opinion on opinions is, regardless of who you are, what your experience is whatsoever, you are allowed an opinion. This is a free country. People may not agree with your opinion. People may not agree with where you're coming from. But, oh well, it's yours. Individuals can do what they want. Okay, so
but on that note, this is also an international podcast, so that may not be true in whatever part of the world you're in.
If you live in a country where you are not allowed to have an opinion, I apologize. However, that's why we have record-breaking immigration. It's because people want to share their opinion.
Yep. And I don't think there's many North Koreans or Russians listening to this podcast. But if you are in Russia, hit the like button because, hey, we as much as we might not agree with your government's policies and what they're doing, at the end of the day, we still appreciate you being here because if you're listening to this, you probably don't share them.
Holy cow! You said if you're Russian and listening to this, hit the like button. We just got 57 likes. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh wow! Okay, welcome. Welcome, comrades. I did that a little bit too well, don't I? But yeah, there was something.
We hope you're having a good day.
I was going to say, have you heard
this isn't water, this is vodka.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you heard the joke that Russian is just English backwards? If you ever spin a record backwards, g'day, how's it going?
Oh, we've devolved and I love it. This is actually a neat, we went into, colonial blacksmiths unions and whatnot, and now we're, chasing John Brunell out because we're not talking about blacksmithing anymore.
Well, we did talk about blacksmithing, but also,
we always devolve at the end.
Yeah, Granddad said,
this is a practical example of the devolution of a conversation.
Exactly,
Yes.
This is natural. Granddad Rob said the lollipop gill was harmless. they were not harmless. So do you
Nope.
see? If
Nope.
you've ever looked at the at shrinkflation, they were not harmless.
And you've
It
got to
started with
read the
candy.
books. You got to read the books. The Lollipop Guild chased out any chocolatiers from the Emerald City.
That's right.
It's that the Lollipop Guild was, a very vindictive
Draconian?
organization and draconian organization. Yes.
Funny
Bye,
enough,
bye, Mr. Brunel.
Draconian actually refers to the Russian Emperor Draco and how he was such overbearing and stuff like that. So that ties right back to the start of the year when we covered Rome.
Yes, but so
history's interlinked.
And here, yes, and even this conversation is interlinked because we're discussing colonial times in America, and that leads up to the American Revolution and all that stuff, and where we chose to be free, to be able to have opinions. So it all ties together.
These are all
it's circular.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's the stuff that we're talking about today, particularly with like the, there being apprenticeship laws, and that also ties into the banning of exporting of iron, and also how guilds and cooperatives operated. These are all things that actually were kind of the first measures of black powder into the barrel that would become the powder keg, which blew up into the American Revolutionary War. These are the first things that started that descent of Americans being what were then British subjects, being treated like second-class British subjects because they lived in the colonies. It was that was the mistakes that happened in the US, and it's a funny thing to think about it like this, and no one ever does, but the mistakes that happened to the colonies in the US led to the nation that is now Australia, because the Brits didn't make the same mistakes as they did with you guys as they did with us. So it's the reason why we kind of have that different mentality about it. But looking at it from a overall historical arching, we didn't have the same problems because Big Brother America, and I mean that in a positive way, as in you're our elder sibling, as opposed to you guys watch everything. You guys
also
led to
yes.
our but you guys led to us, Australia being a better nation for it, because those restrictions weren't placed on us as they were with you guys. And I think Sally wanted to say something as well.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, because the whole subject was colonial blacksmithing, right? And I was totally going to come in today and be funny, and I was going to have a whole bit on colonial Australian blacksmithing. And and then now, I mean, like yesterday, I got a dispatch for midnight last night, and I'm like, well, I'm going to be in the truck for the show, so my joke's out.
You know what?
Well, not really a joke. I was just going to kind of go a different direction with it,
Well, I was thinking of the same thing, but I think, I was looking at talking to you guys about covering colonial Australian blacksmithing when we actually cover the American, but when we cover the American Civil War, because Australia, like the Revolutionary War was before it was in 1700s, but when you guys went through your Civil War, that's when Australia was being, was really into the point of not so much founded, but our colonial blacksmithing was happening, because you guys, for example, and I mean this is a very loose example, but for example, and I discussed this with you guys the other week. For those of you who know the Australian outlaw / folk hero, Ned Kelly, was also one of the first ever feature-length films ever made was about Ned Kelly.
Hey,
Sorry?
I said he's a sick what?
Can't say that it's a family show.
Oh, right.
He was a sick country Irishman. But I snuck it in there. But No, so the reason why I mention him is because during that period where he was active, and he was a bushranger. So basically, it was like Australia's version of the Wild West outlaw. He robbing stagecoaches and banks and all that type of stuff, and stealing horses and whatnot. Now, in his last battle, the one thing he's most well known for is a suit of armor. It was actually made out of plowshares. And his last stand at Glenrowan, where his brother was killed, the members of his gang were killed, and he was actually taken into custody. And it was a suit of armor with a big square head with a slit in the front. I'm sure, Yamez, if you want to do a quick search, you can find a picture of Ned Kelly in his armor. And you type in Ned Kelly, it's generally the first picture that comes up. Now, it is claimed that the inspiration for his armor came from the Civil War ship. I'm not sure exactly what it was called, but I believe it was referred to as Old Ironside.
That's the one.
So yeah, so so to kind of give you context of what was happening, there was apparently he'd read it in a newspaper article here in Australia about what was happening in America's Civil War. Of course, we were still colonies at that stage. Or it was an old article, might have been a couple of years old at that stage. But for example, our most famous penal colony, which is Port Arthur. Then they're bringing up his armor just it's on the screen a little bit ago. But our penal colony of Port Arthur was founded in 1836. So again, it's the period of which.
It's one flat cod piece.
Yeah, yeah. and the way they actually eventually took out, because you can see the holes from where the dents from where the bullets hit. The armor was I think it weighed something like 120 pounds or something. 80 kilos just by that armor.
How many stones?
It's I'm not sure. But it's very heavy armor, and the way the police or Victorian police at the time figured out how to take him out was actually shoot out his knees. That's why he was taken alive. And they shot his knees or shot his legs out from under him, because of course the armor didn't go down to his legs. But yeah, but Ned Kelly and his gang, his brother and his gang, actually forged that out of plowshares. They did it themselves. They didn't take it to a blacksmith. They figured out how to do it themselves, and they made that by hand. A couple of bush boys in Australia figuring out. But yeah. No. So seeing the comments, there must be a movie where Mick Jagger is playing Ned Kelly. Yes, there is. But the first feature-length movie, and by modern standard feature-length movie that I'm talking about, was actually, I think it was filmed in like the early 1900s. It's a black and white silent film, and it's credited as being, and it's called Ned Kelly. It's credited as being the earliest feature length film on record. And yeah, so but yeah, so I mean, that's an example. Like I said, that was all happening during the time of the American Civil War. So when we get to that period of colonial blacksmithing, that shows that period of which we're tied in. And I, as someone that I love history, I kind of have those two periods of time separate in my head. I think the American Civil War happened at a certain period of time, and Australian colonialism happened kind of before that or after that or whatnot. But, even the whole reason why Australia was found and settled is because your Revolutionary War, the reason why you celebrate Independence Day this month, Britain stopped sending their prisoners to you, and they had to find a place to send them to. So, Captain Cook had already discovered Australia in 1776. I just read accounts before of what blacksmiths were doing in Jamestown during 1776, or Williamsburg during 1776. So you guys stopped taking prisoners. British had to send them somewhere. They'd already found this island, and then they decided to start colonizing here and send them here. So it's all that intermixing of history that kind of makes you go, oh wow, this was all happening at the same time. So yeah, 1770. Yeah, I knew it was around that stage. Sorry,
I'd like to question the logic of sending a bunch of prisoners to colonize. I mean, like,
yeah, I saw the movie No
logic
Escape.
would dictate, they're all going to get together and they're, they're not going to be obedient servants. I mean,
well, no,
it seems like somewhere along down the line that's going to go wrong, like Lord of the Flies wrong.
But think of it this way, right? And it kind of did. Look at the way Australia is now. But if you think of it this way, the British, from a cold, rainy, grey, miserable place, sent all their prisoners to a lush tropical island. They sent them on holiday. Why do you think none of them went? Very few of them wanted to go back. So yeah, yep. But it's just strange to think about how, like I was saying before, history is all connected. But particularly during this period that we're talking about, just how connected it is. And when we get to the American Civil War, as part of our conversations on colonial blacksmithing, I will make sure that we cover some Australian blacksmithing of the period as well, because it does tie in, and I have in the magazines, so everyone knows, of course, that I had something that I recently annotated, Practical Blacksmithing. But in the Blacksmith and Wheelwright, the original magazine it come from, there were many, many letters from excuse me. There were many, many letters from Australian blacksmiths from all over the colony. Tasmania, New South Wales, Western Australia, Queensland, and of course New Zealand was part of it, because New Zealand was actually at that time kind of classified as an Australian colony. Insofar as when we actually became an independent nation, they were supposed to be part of Australia, and they pulled out last minute. But yeah, so that's in the American magazines. You've got advice and also columns and letters written by Australian blacksmiths that were being sent to these magazines of the period. So it's very important as that intermingling of history during that period. Sorry, I don't know why I got sneezes all of a sudden. I'm allergic to it. But yeah, so anyway, so just to show how blacksmithing, particularly during that period in Australia, influenced Australian history. Someone talk for me, because I'm sneezing. I'm sneezing like up a storm here. I'm going to have to go on mute for a second because my eyes are watering.
I kind of think we covered it. We brought it back and discussing, the whole Australian colonialism, or the colonial blacksmith, period. That's an excellent topic, and we've got a show coming up on the 23rd that would be perfect for that, because we can plan it, plot it, and that will be, just a heads up guys, that will be a pre-recorded show. I know I usually don't announce that we do a pre-recorded show, but like I said in the beginning, I'm just going to be so busy that week, or that weekend, I probably won't even be able to go live that evening. I don't know. We're going to talk how they forged drop bears and
and remember, if you want to be part of the pre-record there, it'll be a members only stream when we do it in the evening.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, exactly. It's all of our pre-recorded shows we do live as a member stream. So if you're a member, feel free to join in, and it will be, make sure you have that notification bell turned on, because we don't even know when we're going to do it. It's going to be when we have time. Mm-hmm. And if you're not a member, then what are you doing? You get all access to all those pre-record live streams. you know, and our test streams and all that fun stuff. And if I could figure out how to do Discord linking with YouTube, you know, I would set it so that we, you know, the members get access to special channels on the Discord, but I can't figure that out. I know it can be done, I just can't figure it out. A drop forged bear, yes. And yeah, so again, I apologize to all you union folk out there who got upset with me, you know, scared John Brunel away. But yeah, I mean, kind of, not gonna say it's proving my point, but
Stop stirring the pot, Yamas.
yeah, I know.
You all union guild otherwise.
Yeah, no,
I mean, you got to remember, Yamas is technically part of a guild.
Yes, I am a guild member, you know, and I'm not going to go into that right now.
Whereas on the other hand, I'm a complete scab because I'm neither part of a union or a guild at the moment. I have no ties to anyone. I'm a free agent. Pay me what I want.
Mr. Pekka, welcome to Bubba. Thank you very much.
Was that your name?
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for the membership. Okay. So
Danke, Jürgen.
basically, yep. Yeah. So Ned Kelly also hijacked me. I think that's why I got the sneezes before. It's still, my nose is still slightly watered in one eye. But
is that like an Australian superstition when you talk about Ned Kelly, he'll make you sneeze? Like, is that his current power?
No, not that I'm aware of. Anyway, they usually there's 50% of the Australian population see him as a cult hero. 50% of the other the other 50% see him as an outlaw, and so you know he's not exactly he's half revered, half despised. You know.
Yeah.
That's why I say he's kind of a folk hero.
Kind of like me.
I'm kind of thinking who would be a similar sort of person in American history. Me beside you. Maybe Billy the Kid, but generally Billy the Kid has, you know, a lot of people see him as a kind of an anti-hero.
Blackbeard the pirate.
I would say Billy the Kid is fairly close as well, because I mean because like the people like they didn't want to turn him in, you know. I mean, he's like you know, he took care of his people too, you know?
Pirates.
And so there was that. I think that's as close as you can get.
Pirates.
Yeah.
Pirates. You know, like pirates. They broke away from the rules to live free, you know. And you know, a lot of the you know, I actually did a deep dive into pirates. I was debating on doing, you know, presenting the idea of doing a pirate themed segments where we discuss the, you know, ingenuity of, you know, pirates living at sea. The blacksmiths, how they take existing, you know, a lot of inventions that we use today are created, you know, like naval, like maritime stuff is created, you know, through with, you know, the ingenuity of, we're stuck at sea for months on end. Let's, you know, do what we can do. Anyway, I digress, but you know, it's a lot of the a lot of the people loved the pirates because they represented freedom, you know, like you know, but and a lot of the government propaganda, you know, from the British government, you know, was anti-piracy, obviously, you know. So it's like you know, from a populist point of view, it was a pretty 50-50, you know, split on whether, you know, like Blackbeard, for example, was a hero or a villain, you know, whether Blackbeard was Edward Teach, and then there was not Billy the Kid. It was one of the I can't remember the names off the top of my head. One of them was
Black
Kid.
Bart. You're talking about You talk about William Kidd,
William Kidd,
Ki double D. Yep,
Yeah,
and then
William Kidd,
there was also
and then
there was
Black
also
Bart
Robert.
Black Bart was less. He was a British, but he spent a lot of his stomping grounds was between the Caribbean, but mostly Eastern Africa.
Mm.
But
Then
yeah,
you also got Calico Jack,
yes, there was
which
Calico
was
Jack.
Virginia's as well.
Yes, yeah, Edward Teach and Calico Jack were, I believe, for a time they even worked together. Like Calico Jack was a captain of one of Admiral Teach's ships.
But this is. Go ahead,
just
Charlie.
an interesting side note there. Do any of you can do off the top of your head? Do any of you know Billy the Kid's name?
William H. Bonney.
Yep. Okay. I was just like, because like you think everybody. I don't know. Maybe that's just something everybody knows, but it's kind of like the people as well. You don't know what Blackbeard's name was? Yeah, it's Edward Teach. Doesn't everybody know that? And he had 7 ships named Queen Anne's Revenge.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every time take another one and name it the same thing, and it's like maybe you should pick a different name. That is very unlucky.
On that note, this is kind of that perfect episode for like when we do
it's a good one-off episode, Pirates.
Yeah, but also it's also good for this month, and this kind of gives people the insight into how we talk, how we discuss our future episodes, because
this is where they come from, just random conversations.
Yeah, and the golden age of piracy existed in this period, and also had a lot to do with the Caribbean, the Carolinas, the American colonies, the War of Spanish Succession.
You're absolutely right. And if you can call off work next week, we'll do Pirates next week.
I can't. Actually, no, I can't call off next week.
Yes, you can.
I nearly thought I could, but I realized I can't. No, I can't.
Yes, you can.
Unfortunately.
Oh, that's right. Your union won't let you.
You're so sick. You're barely moving. You know what I mean?
No, we see.
I've got get out of bed and call your boss.
Yeah, well, see, I've got the so off work week next Sunday. I work because the Sunday after the first Sunday in August, I've actually got off. So I can't. It looks a bit suspect if I have next Sunday off.
Just tell your boss you're not allowed to work Sundays anymore.
If I actually legitimately get sick, I'll take it off. But I can't. I'm far too honest, and I'm far too honest to be able to get away with stuff like that, unfortunately. Okay,
so on a back to, I think we've offered a good almost 20 minutes of filler that can be edited in to remove my rant. If you would like to remove the rant for the podcast, that's up to you. I have no problems with people knowing my opinions on things. But yeah, so
I'll figure that out in editing.
Yeah, let's go ahead and switch over to the final thoughts, and I'll try to make mine so that it won't be edited out.
So I'll go first.
Yeah,
please.
Because I got a minute. I don't have a whole lot on Colonial blacksmithing. I guess I had, but it's not here. It's all pulled up on pages on my open browser tabs on my PC at the house. Not doing me any good right now, is it? However, I can go back to my old stand-in final thoughts. Is if you're not doing anything today, get out to your shop. Build something, have fun while you're doing it, unless you live in Texas. If you live in Texas, do not go outside between the hours of 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. You'll fry. So, either become a night owl or just stay inside all day. So, other than that, y'all stay safe, stay hydrated, and have a good week. So, I'll see you next Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay, so my final thoughts is actually kind of a rant. During my research, and it's something I think we as blacksmiths need to educate and squash. And I say that as Blacksmith, as a collective, as a group of people that we are in the profession and or vocation that we do. I am sick and absolutely tired to death of thinking a smithy is a dark and dank and dirty place. I am so tired of it. I see it. It might be untidy, but I have not seen. I've never seen a smithy that is absolutely dirty. It's a workplace. It's industrial. Of course, it's not going to be exactly clean, right? And it might be untidy, but it's not dirty, you know. And it's not dark. We all know it's near on impossible to see what you're doing when you're working in the dark. It might be not in bright sunlight, but every single workshop I have ever walked into that is a smithy, and even if you look at historical photos, very rarely, very, very rarely are they dank, enclosed, dark places. They are always fairly well lit. They're open to fresh air, and they have plenty of room to move about in. Sure, they might be untidy, and I had a discussion with this yesterday with a couple of people that were watching me doing my demo, because I'd put something on the anvil, and then I'd drop a set of tongs in order to I was working on a hammer, for example. I dropped the set of tongs in order to grab the drift to put the drift into the hammer. And and then I'd go around and turn around and go, where the hell did I put my tongs? Even though I'd just thrown them off to the side. We might drop tools and stuff like that, but they're never dirty, and the workshop is never dark and dank. So we need to, as blacksmiths, and I say it now, we need to rectify that myth that all blacksmiths are dark and dark and horrible places to work. They're wonderful. They're our livelihoods. They're what keep us motivated and keep us going.
I get it. I'll replace my light bulbs and fix the holes in my roof. I get it.
Good. It should. Well, I know it's summertime over there at the moment, and it's technically the wrong time of year for you to be doing maintenance, but you never do it during the bloody winter. So get the maintenance done.
It's the wrong year for me to be out, or it's the wrong season for me to be outside. It's gonna be 90 something today. I know it's not as hot as Texas, and I'll get all sorts of, you don't even know how hot it is, but
I believe the correct response is, son, you don't even know what hot is. I tell you what, let me show you. You come to Texas, I'll show you hot.
You with your dry heat.
I thought I'd tell you what was a sentence in and of itself.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
I'll tell you
what is a complete sentence. You do not have to follow that with anything else. It's like, I tell you what.
I tell you what.
You tell me what? Yes, what? I've been the type of person that go, I'll tell you what. And I'll be going,
nope, you're mispronouncing it, Adam. You got to pronounce the H. I'll tell you what. What?
Yeah. All right. So tell me what? What the hell are you saying?
Nope. You need to infer context.
Is it like Stewie and his whip?
Whip.
Like
Will Wheaton. So my final thoughts. Thank you all for subscribing. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for supporting us. Even though he's not here anymore, thank you, John Burnell, for your opinions, your thoughts, and you existing. You are an amazing person, and we do this all for you specifically, and only you. Well, also you, Ben Tubes. Anyway, big thanks to all the channel members and super chatters and supporters, and huge shout out, huge thank you to the co-hosts that I have. As you guys know, I'd be completely lost without them. And yeah. So with that, appreciate your roots.
Yeah, you can find.
Appreciate your roots. I'm not done. Appreciate your roots. Know your history so you know where you came from, and you can take and appreciate where you are. Know your roots. Cool whip. Go ahead.
You usually do your final thoughts after I do the outro. You're messing up the flow of things.
Oh, this is such a fun show.
Have you got anything else to add? Like, hurry the hell up.
I'll add 1 + 1 is 2. Okay.
Am I right to go now? Can I ask your permission, oh wise and merciful leader?
Go. What are you still doing not going?
Thank you all for joining us. You can find Yamas on YouTube and Instagram. Yamas has left Facebook. You can find Alexis at Transcendental Artist Studios on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can find me, Adam, at Speargrass Forge on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget, if you have any suggestions for Tool of the Week, Metal of the Week, or any other topic, including our current one of, smithing through the ages, or any particular civilization you'd like us to cover, you can leave it under the hashtag Metal of the Week in the Yoo-Hoo community chat on Discord, or you can join us, or you can email us at impracticalblacksmith@gmail.com. Or, of course, you can flick Alexis or I a message on Instagram. If you found us on Spotify, Amazon Music, or Google Podcasts, we upload every Wednesday-ish. Of course, that's subject to Alexis's schedule, because she is the one that does our editing and sometimes gets a little bit busy. Or you can join us live every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's currently 11:30 p.m. Australian Central Standard Time, but check that against your local time, and that's over at the Island Metal Forge YouTube channel. Finally, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to give us that star rating. We really do appreciate your support. And thank you very much for those that have decided to join in with us tonight and listening to our rants and sidetracks and also a little bit about colonial blacksmithing.
That's what life's about. A little bit of blacksmithing. All right.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
A little bit of blacksmithing on my side.
A little bit of